appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're going to get some other people in here, so just bear with us just 2 more seconds. We're going to get Russ in here too, so just give us 2 more seconds. Talk amongst yourself. You can be a little loud. A healthy chatter is good. We'll be in good shape. So give us 2 seconds.
Chatter is good. Super dark.
Anyone else from West Covina Tower here?
Hold on 1 second.
No, we're not talking to you. What other locations are here?
Lakewood.
Lakewood.
Sorry, I'm just meeting the moderator here, so I can introduce the moderator.
Oh.
So
You said
that
talk
he can
amongst
introduce everybody else. No, it's cool, man. It's all right.
We're talking amongst ourselves.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool.
I didn't think it was that loud, but that's cool.
Is this a Rowdy Tower crowd we have here?
Hell yeah!
I like it, I like it. We got some friends in the building. Hey, we'll walk up here.
Good evening, I'm Randy Lewis. I cover music for the Los Angeles Times. I've been doing that for a little more than 30 years, but maybe tonight it's more relevant that before that I worked literally across the street in what used to be the RCA Records building on the top floor at Cashbox Magazine, back when the music industry had 3 trade publications, Billboard, Cashbox, and Record World. And as part of my job there, I would call Russ Solomon at every opportunity that I could. There were people that I had to call regularly. Russ was a person that I got to call regularly. And I always enjoyed talking to him because, as you saw there, he's a treat to talk to, and always would shoot straight from the hip. Just quickly, who in here, did you ever go to Tower Records on Sunset? And anybody go to any other Tower Record stores? Okay, let's have a hand for Tower. And to Colin for an excellent job on telling that story. Well, why don't we bring you folks up and we'll talk a bit about
Why don't we introduce Mr. Russ Solomon?
And here he is, Russ Solomon.
Really great when you have a loaded audience.
Well, they're primed now. Well, let me just ask, you know, one of the things that I take away from this film is you see kind of a change of an era of just the way things work in this country. You know, you started as a great example of an entrepreneur with an idea, with a vision, and to me, the great thing is, you know, you were selling music. You weren't selling widgets, and that's why people got teary about Tower Records going away. So it seems like one of the themes here, and Colin, you can tell me if that was part of your agenda, that you know, we've seen things change to where it's all about the bottom line, and you know, the prospect of you know, having a company where people have fun and you're there to share something with the consumers that you're doing business with.
Well, we had a lot of fun doing it. That was the main thing. And I don't know that I had a vision in the very first instance. It was just a job. And then it evolved, and it keeps evolving over the years. You get a new idea, you try it, or somebody in the company gets a new idea, we try it. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But all along, we're all kind of a big family having a lot of fun.
Well, Colin, again, you could see the nature of the story, and the character of the main character is pretty compelling. But you know, what did draw you to want to dig into this story and tell it in this way.
Ironically, it wasn't the characters at all at first. It was really just more little historical things about the company that I didn't know about. Sean and I, we both grew up in Sacramento, so we spent a lot of time going to Tower Records growing up. So I spent a lot of time in Tower. I'm a big music fanatic, and music was very important to me. And there were, you know, all of the tenets that we sort of talk about in the film were all things that I noticed without really acknowledging the, you know, the deep inventory, the knowledgeable staff, all of those sorts of things. Those were just things that I knew. And so when the stores were closing, it was a combination of A, being bummed because I was losing a place I loved to go to, but there was also this civic pride aspect of it. And so the moment that I heard, when the stores were closing, someone told me about the drugstore. I had never heard about the drugstore. I really didn't know much about Russ. I'd heard stories about him, but not really anything that stuck in my teenage brain. But that drugstore was such a fascinating little bit of history that I said straight up, that's a documentary. If that man's journey starts there and ends, you know, closing 192 stores, and that's not even really the end of your journey, to be quite honest, but just the end of Tower's journey, that's a fascinating arc. There's got to be something there. And the more I researched, it was really more about dates, facts, when stores open, little things that in retrospect I find to be super fascinating. And then once we met Russ, and he insisted that he was not the only person behind Tower Records, and that it really was this family that we needed to go and get their stories, that's when Sean and I realized that this was really much more than just a standard documentary, and this was really a narrative story that we were going to be able to tell, along with those interesting little things that I think are supremely fascinating, but some people may be a little bored by.
Sean, what were some light bulb moments for you in digging into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we sat down with Russ, I think 10 minutes into the conversation, Colin and I looked at each other, and we were wide-eyed, you know, jaw on the ground, realized we'd found an incredible, incredible character to hang our hat on from a documentary standpoint. I'm just saying nice things because you're sitting next to me.
The first thing I told them, they were nuts.
Yeah, the number of times, that was one of the more interesting things about Russ, is the number of times he told us we were nuts, the modesty that he has, the credit he gives to everyone else, as he says, the Tom Sawyer theory. What he created, I mean, we gleaned a lot from him. The number of times we sat there and talked with him off the record when we were done with the documentary, how much we learned from him as a person. He's an inspiring person, an inspiring character, and somebody we've had a lot of fun working with.
And in a strange way, that first meeting showed, ironically now I notice it, but it shows me exactly how he made so many decisions. We said we wanted to make this documentary about Tower Records. We obviously were passionate about it, and that came across. And he said, "You guys are nuts, you'll never make any money. But yeah, sure, let's do it." Which is kind of how everything worked there from what we've been able to gather.
Actually, we had that first meeting in the actual space that was in the drugstore way back when.
Yeah, our first lunch was the Tower Cafe in the Tower Theater building. Literally in the room where he stuck those first views, where the first few records were hung in the back, yeah.
Well, looking back from this perspective now, here we are in 2015, and you've seen so many things change in the music business. Do you look at the kind of the 60s and the 70s when things really boomed and exploded? Do you feel like that's a bubble at this point? Was that just a once in a lifetime thing, and now that's gone and passed?
That's a really good question. I think every age has a once in a lifetime thing. And that while we're in a transitional moment, if you will, or a huge transition from what it was in the 60s and 70s, don't forget we were tied in with a lifestyle too that went along with it. So it's a case of a huge change amongst the way people live, particularly young people, and this tremendous interest in music, the freedom of the whole thing, and so that sort of went away with the advent of downloading and streaming and what have you. But I kind of think that it doesn't ever go away. I mean, there's a resurgence now in LPs, which is not gonna be a mass big deal. But it shows that there's a desire on the part of people to own something, collect something, feel it in their hands, and then put it on a turntable.
Well, and that's a great point, and I've actually had this conversation with Elton John and others, that the physical connection, a tangibility of music cements you to it, bonds you to it in a way that you don't get from a download that comes over your computer.
But streaming is not gonna go away.
No, it's not going to go away, but you do see what's happening now is, a lot of young listeners they're having, listening parties. They get together at somebody's house and they pull out vinyl and they put it on a turntable. And
Those
they listen to it
crazy
together.
kids. Crazy kids.
Think
I wonder
let
what
me
they're
bring back the
doing at those
45.
listening parties. Kids, listening parties, tonight at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, one of the funny things for us too, everywhere we go and during this process, people come up to us and, they say, oh my God, Tower Records, the first time I walked in there, or, oh my God, that first album I ever bought, and that tactile experience. People, Colin always points out, people remember where they were when they bought that signature album that made an impact in their lives, but you don't remember when you downloaded a song. Like, it's not like, oh, I was sitting in my underwear in my bedroom and I downloaded that track and it changed everything. No, you went to the store, you grabbed this record, you came to the register, and you ran home and you listened to it 10 times, or got in your car and listened to it 10 times, and it made an impact, and you remember that.
Yeah, I never thought of that underwear part.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what we do. We think of people in their underwear.
Well, things were going great, and as you see in the film, it just kept growing and growing. Was there ever a point where do you stop and you go, are we big enough? Are we big enough yet?
I don't think we ever thought of it that way. It was just that there's a wide, big world out there, and this was a little dumb, I think, on my part, that I wanted to conquer the world. We can always say the sun never set on Tower Records, so at least we were fighting with the British Empire. This would make no sense.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Are you kidding me? Why are you giving that now? I don't have a camera here. Yeah.
Is anyone recording? Can we get footage of that? Recut this movie.
Well, I spent a lot of time in the Sunset store, and anytime I was coming up to see a show at the Troubadour or the Roxy, I'd always make time early enough to go by Tower and just see what was there. And in fact, it was the site of a highlight of my career where I interviewed William Shatner there when he put a record out with Ben Folds. So I got to meet Captain Kirk there.
That's pretty fun. Forgot it immediately, so.
Well, Colin, what is your hope with this? What is the the lesson to be learned, or our takeaway about the Tower Records tale?
I'm not really sure, to be quite honest. We were so focused on trying to tell the story the best way that we could, and to be honest to all of the people that worked at Tower, specifically the people that we spoke to, but the greater Tower family at large, in which there's over 100,000 people. We wanted to be able to at least tell the essence of the story. We were never going to get every single facet. We were never going to be able to uncover every single gem. We weren't going to be able to get everybody's opinion or even every fact 100% accurate. But we wanted to be able to boil down the overall journey of Tower and what it meant to people, and really celebrate that, so that the people that worked at Tower could be proud of it, the people that shopped at Tower could remember it and maybe miss it and celebrate a little bit, and maybe the people that weren't around that have no knowledge of it would watch it and go, oh wow, this is a little bit of interesting slice of history. Besides that, it's not really up to us. It's really up to the people that watch it. And I just hope they enjoy it.
Well, and sitting here tonight, I mean, this is our opening night. This is our first big room to be in like this with all of you, and to be in a sold-out, theater like this with this movie. This is all we can hope for. We've got a great distributor in Gravitas that has a lot of faith in the film and is putting us where we want to be theatrically. And it's hard to get theatrical distribution for a documentary. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight and supporting the film, because it's the reason that we made this, and we're so excited you are here.
I have to say that. Thank you. I have to say that to get 68 years, that's how long we were around, into 90 minutes was a real tour de force. And after they got it finished and I saw it for the first time, I said, you know, you guys actually, you did pretty well with that.
We always joke we could have done a mini-series. I mean, there's so many beautiful stories that'll fall into the DVD extras and the Apple iTunes extras at some point that are, you know, incredible stories that tell volumes about Russ and about the company and what they did and what they achieved and what they meant to people. We could have done an A&E mini-series for sure.
I would have liked to.
Well, we'll wait for the 3-disc Blu-ray set.
There it is.
You gotta get more sexy stuff in it.
Wait, Russ, do you follow? Do you
So
pay
many jokes
attention
there, so many
to
jokes.
what's happening? You know, in the music business now. Do you still take an interest in kind of how things are going? And
Yeah, I do, actually. I read Billboard Biz every day. Too bad there isn't a cash box biz anybody read the cash box. And yeah, well, you know, if you live your life in a particular industry, if you will, or a particular avocation or vocation, you want to stay with it till the end. And it's a terribly interesting story continuing on, you know. The changes in the music, the changes in the delivery of the music, the way that the people sell it is vastly different than it was a few years ago. So yeah, I stick with it. I'm not sure I understand half of it, but that doesn't matter.
Not only does he stick with it, when we first met with Russ, he had actually opened up another record store in Sacramento, in a former Tower location. It was called R5 Records, and that was in that early stage where one of the areas that I wanted to cover within the film was the fact that he went right back in and was at it again. And unfortunately that store didn't work out, and that actually was a big lesson for me, and which is really when I started really pulling pages out of Russ's playbook, when I realized that things are not always going to go according to plan. Things are going to evolve, and you just have to adjust to whatever is thrown at you and try and work with what you've got. But yeah, he's still in it.
Yeah, but R5 was not my finest hour.
Well,
You've got to really, well, we ran into 2008, which the economy wasn't doing so well, and there was a great deal of changes in attitude about the music business, the record business, and so on. So, but it was fun for a couple of years.
well, I have just always enjoyed getting to talk to you. There were a lot of the people, a lot of businesses we've seen come and go. You know, the 60s and 70s were a real, you know, golden era in the music retail business. And we had, you know, you had the Music Pluses, you had the Licorice Pizza, you had the Warehouse. But as all of those have gone by the wayside, we didn't see a lot of emotional outpouring for it the way the Tower was. I mean, we wrote a front page story when the Sunset store closed, and no, in the LA Times. Yeah, just, you know, in '06 or when that store closed. And so again, you know, what's your sense of that, you know, connection that you know that you had with just, you know, rank and file consumers, music fans?
Just as an aside, Jimmy Greenwood, who was Licorice Pizza here, was at our party last night. Yeah, him and his wife. What was the question?
Just, you know, again, sort of talking a little bit about the special place that the Tower held, that you managed to hang on to that, or just exploit it, and that was a central part of what Tower was. That it was just this place like no place else.
Well, I had a lot of help, and that's not a joke. I mean, it really and truly, the whole thing was the creative work, as Colin said a little earlier, the creative work of just hundreds, possibly thousands of people, because their ideas, if they were good ones, were applied, and if they worked, they kept going, you know. and we were always open to all those new ideas. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, but the ones that worked were great.
It was also interesting when we started this process. There's a rather large LA contingent group of people here that still to this day have 2 company picnics a year. They get together and still every year have 2 company picnics for the entire LA group. Like seeing a group of people, 10 years after this company has gone bankrupt, still getting together and doing that. Like, I don't know that exists in any other industry, any other business that I've ever heard of.
Well, and it's not just the former employees, it's also the people that shopped in the stores. Since we painted up the old Sunset store for the party that we had last night, the number of people that come and take photos, it's literally, grown men with tattoos and biker vests, slack-jawed, like they're looking at Mickey Mouse for the first time. And they're just so happy. In fact, just today, I'm not sure if they're here. Where's that couple from San Diego? Are you guys still here? Okay, so these 2 people came all the way from San Diego. They drove up specifically for tonight. What are your names again?
Scott and Karina.
Scott and Karina. Scott and Karina drove up from San Diego. They never even worked in a store. They just shopped here. They just shopped at Tower. That kind of devotion is pretty special. And in the back of my mind and in my heart of hearts, my hope, I always thought and knew that there were people like that cared as much about Tower as I did. And so that was the thing that kept us going throughout the 7 years, because I knew if I got excited when I saw the Tower Records logo, when I was doing research, that other people would feel the same way. And every single person that's taken a photo of the store this week, and those 2 coming into the store today, that just sort of proved my point, that there is something about this store that people just, they love it.
Well, I wanted a piece of it, and I don't know if this will make you smile or cry, but at my house I have a Tower listening station that I bought from one of the stores. It still works, and our kids get to actually put music on it and listen to it that
I'll
way.
be darned. One interesting part of that, that whole technology that we were using, which is sort of primitive by today's standards, was developed here in Los Angeles in that store. Then we spread it around the country and the world. Again, it was pretty primitive, to say the least, compared to the ability of computers to listen to anything in the world by pushing a couple of buttons.
But it was a listening station, and in fact, we're across the street from where Wallach's Music City used to be, and you'd go in and you could go into the booth and try out a record and see if you liked it before you bought it.
Well, you sat in the window. He wanted us to be seen in the window. My memory of Wallach's, whom I knew, by the way, Clyde Wallach's, is that when you went into the store to listen to those records, that was the most destroyed bunch of records you ever saw in your life. We had listening booths at one time, and which was the way. It's too bad, actually, that as the technology changed and as they began to seal records in plastic and all that stuff, that the whole idea of being able to listen to